Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the Morning Market Prep video for June 17th, 2024. Well, hope everyone had a great weekend, ready for another wild and crazy week in the market. At least we have some data this week that maybe not quite as market moving as what we saw last week and all the anticipation for that. But we still have enough that we could have an interesting week along with a midweek shutdown for a holiday. So let's take a look at what happened overnight. We had Asian markets last night down across the board, not feeling very bullish over there at the moment. The Chinese bank, People's Bank of China, held the medium term lending rate unchanged. So I think they were maybe expecting a little bit different over there, but kind of held that right where it was. So we ended up lower across the board here in Asian markets. If we take a look at European markets this morning, they had started higher, but then kind of faded a little bit, had a little bit of a mix going on, very modest moves here this morning with still a tiny little mix with the FTSE just ever so slightly lower. DAX and the CAC are trying to move up in very small gains like 0.06% and 0.03% gains. So very, very small, trying to shake off worries about the election process there in France. If we take a look at U.S. futures, well, we have a mix in U.S. futures as well, with Dow and S&P 500 futures just slightly lower here this morning, and NASDAQ futures, as normal, continuing to push to the upside here as big tech continues to draw all the attention in the market. If we take a look other areas of the market and we take a look at oil just a little bit down this morning, as you can see here in XLE continuing in this downtrending path here. We may be reaching maybe the lower side of that move, and we might be wanting to see a little bit of a relief rally, but right now energy remains pretty weak and moving opposite the direction of the tech sector, which, could be a little bit of a warning that a change could be on the way here in the market. If we take a look at our precious metals here this morning, well, we've got precious metals all just a little tiny bit lower, not terrible, but we've got gold down $14 an ounce. Silver, copper, platinum, and palladium are all lower here this morning. And we've got cryptos mostly lower here this morning, with Bitcoin down $645 a coin. One of the culprits for that, of course, is going to be what's happening with the US dollar. And the dollar, a lot of volatility here in the overnight on the dollar. Popping up, but now starting to pull back here just a bit. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. With the dollar kind of breaking out here, we'll want to be watching that pretty closely. Let's take a look at our bond prices here this morning. Our bond prices, we've got the 2-year bonds at 4.7%, moving just a little bit higher today. The 10-year bonds are at 4.24% and the 30-year bonds at 4.38%, as this history-breaking inversion in the bonds continues. We'll have to keep an eye on that because it continues to signal that possibility that we will see a recession. So watch carefully as those bonds continue to try and figure out what we're going to do with this overall market. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can gain a little bit of information about how we might want to approach the market for today. And, well, let's try to shake off that bias and see if we can just really take a good close look at the price action and see what it is trying to tell us. If we take a look at the diamonds here, as you can see, quite an interesting wedging pattern going on in here where we've made a lower high. We have that possibility in here of a head and shoulders pattern, and that chance that if we break this neckline, well, there's some pretty big downside that could occur in here if that were to break. But we continue to cling to this resistance or support level here in the chart. As of Friday, we gapped down below there and then rallied back up to hold on, and you can see that little bit of pressure coming in here on the diamonds this morning, so we'll want to watch that closely, but be kind of careful here. If the bulls find inspiration, well, first thing I'm going to be looking for is, can they break back through that area? If the bulls can push up, popping through there, and then I'm going to look for them to come back up into here and see if we can break some of these resistance levels and downtrend here in the chart. And I'll show you here in just a little bit why that might be possible. If we take a look at the bearish side of the market, however, well, we can see if we can't hold on to this price support in here, our next level down would be testing this low of Friday to see whether or not that will hold. And if that were to fail, then we're probably going to be testing this upside trend in here as support, and possibly even moving on down to test this level and see if we can actually complete this lower high in a lower low, confirming the downtrend. So watch that carefully here in the diamonds. Diamonds not looking great. Kind of conflicted here at the moment. If we take a look at the SPY, however, a very different picture. As long as we can continue to push those big techs higher, and what we're really starting to see is that the market is becoming thinner and thinner in leadership. We're just a few stocks. Sometimes on some days, one or two big tech stocks have been continuing to push these indexes higher. Now, if we take a look at the SPY, you can see we're in a very, very bullish pattern, and there's nothing here that suggests bearishness at the moment. As you can see, little consolidating move here after that gap up, and then that possibility, if we can find that bullish inspiration, to push on through to the upside. So blue skies above possible in the SPY. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration, well, you can see a test of support here we'll want to be watching for, and if that support were to break, then we fall into this gap that we may yet have to fill here. And then, of course, that's going to bring us into our upside trend here in the chart, and then some support below. Now, breaking below there is where some fear will come into the market. And there is a pattern here that we'll want to be watching. So far, no particular worries on that, but if we were to gap down at some point in time, gap down and leave a window on here, depending on how this were to come together, there is that possibility of an island reversal pattern here in the SPY if we cannot see that bullish push through here in the market. Now, if we take a look at our QQQ is where most of the leadership is, and again, it's just a very small select number of companies, and what we're seeing right now is corporate buybacks in those tech giants are the biggest volume in those tech giants at the moment, buying up their own stock. So continuing to stretch higher here, big upside trend in the market. If I were to change this into a channel, you can see we're up here really stretching this move in the QQQ, but that certainly doesn't mean we can't go higher the way this market has been acting. So taking a look here in the QQQ, if we can continue to push on higher, where you can see only blue skies above here in QQQ, so every reason to believe that's possible. If the bears were to find some kind of inspiration here, I'm going to draw a line right through here, and that would be the area that I'd be looking as a test of support. Breaking below that, we're probably going to come into this area in the in the Qs, and then if we were to push on beyond that, we'd be looking at a gap fill. Beyond that point, once again, we're down here, we'd be testing the trend and that possibility of a little bit of concern if we were to break that area in the NASDAQ. So watch that carefully as we continue to extend and really stretch. Just a few select stocks in that index. And then our IWM, flipping over to the bearish side again, and you can see here we've already got a confirmation here in IWM of a continued downtrend with a lower high followed by a lower low. But that being said, we're not really stretching this all that much to the downside just yet. If the bulls can find inspiration, then I'm going to be looking at a retest right up into here, push that up, and then we're going to see if we can push right on through and start coming back up into here and testing this area of price resistance in the chart. So watch carefully for that if those bulls grab a hold. Now, if the bears were to grab a hold here, notice that we've got some areas here of congestion, price action congestion, but this is a trend line, and this trend line has been kind of an interesting battle zone for some time in the market. Notice we broke above, we held this as support and then broke on through, and then we broke down, held it as resistance and broke down. We consolidated here and then broke down and then reversed. Been kind of an interesting battle line here in the chart. So my guess would be if the bears were to find inspiration here and push on lower, that we would push down, and first thing, testing this trend line here to see if we can hold it as support. If we cannot hold that area as support, then you can see we start to progressively push down through this area here, and you can see these lows down here could certainly be attacked in the chart if we were to really get going here on the Russell to the downside. So we've got diamonds and SPY looking lower. We've got QQQ and the SPY continuing to stretch higher and with some very thin leadership here in the market. If we take a look at our VIX spiked back up a little bit on Friday. We've been whipsawing around here just a little bit. Saw a little fear come in there on Friday, and they held on to it at least a little bit into the close, but no major change here. If we look right here, there may be this ever so slightly higher low here in the VIX, but I don't think it's anywhere close to meaningful unless we can break through this downtrend here in that. And right now we closed the day just right around there, 12.5 handles on the VIX. No major fear here in the market. If we were to break through here and hold some kind of a higher low, okay, then I'm going to be a little bit more concerned here. But the way the market's been acting, every reason to believe we can continue this bullish move with just those few tech sector stocks pushing higher, and push this right on down into maybe even some new recent lows here in the VIX. If we take a look at our T2122 now, T2122, I mentioned there was some kind of a reason that we could maybe expect a little bit of bullishness to come here in the market, and this would be it. T2122, the 4-week new high and new low ratio, you can see we're down here in the bullish reversal zone. We got this little hooking pattern starting to show here in the chart, and although we're pressing a little bit lower here in the pre-market, we're already seeing a little bit of bullish push to the to try and recover that here this morning. Watch that carefully. If we were to hook this over and start moving back up, well, that would be a normal price action move. You can see you can take T2122 as far back as you want, and when we are bearish here in the market, we come down in this area, we can stick down here for just a little bit. We can wander around down in here, but as a general rule, we find a way to relieve that sell pressure here in the market. And it's an interesting situation where we've got SPY and QQQ at new highs, and yet we have so many stocks in an oversold condition here in the market. So SPY and QQQ are really masking what is going on in the overall indexes, and we'll have to watch that. This is a dynamic I have not seen, and a dynamic that I'm not sure anyone has seen when we've had such a select few stocks with the size of companies capable of holding the indexes. So very interesting situation going on here. But if those bulls can find inspiration here today, we certainly have plenty of upside opportunity if they can get going. We can see on the bearish side, we may be running out of that inspiration here, or near that that problem here in the market, where we're kind of maxed out short in a lot of places overall. Now, if we take a look at our T2108, and T2108 shows us our problem here as well. We continue to make new record highs in the market, but notice the percentage of the stocks above their 40-day moving average continues to decline. So we're down here around 30, 31 here in T2108. We continue to move that downtrend lower. We broke a little bit of price support here on Friday. So if those bears continue to push these stocks lower, then you can see we've got plenty of room that we could actually move lower here in T2108. We'll have to watch that carefully. But if the bulls can find some inspiration, the first thing I would be looking at is pushing back up through that resistance, and then we've got this downtrend in here that we've got to deal with on T2108 to see if we can push on through. Now here again, this is just one of those signs where we continue to get this impression that the market is uber bullish. Everything is great in the market, and yet we see the percentage of stocks above the 200-day continuing to sink here on Friday. We did slip below the 50% area here in T2108. So we still have the majority of stocks moving lower here in the market while we're setting new record highs in the SPY and the Qs. So watch that carefully here. We've got this downtrend going on still. If the bears can continue to push, well, there certainly is downside opportunity here. We can see we can go much lower here in T2107. We've got a good little area of price support here, congestion support in here, however. And if the bulls can find inspiration here, first thing I want to see them do is break back through that area right there, that downtrend and resistance, relieve some of that pressure here in the market. And then our T2101, interesting on Friday that the breadth was just so weak. Even on that big sell wave, there just wasn't enough breadth in the market to hold us or move us. It's been very, very choppy. So we continue moving lower here in this channeling move to the downside where breadth continues to weaken. And one of the things we'll have to be paying attention to, more and more companies are going to be slipping into their blackout period as we head into the next earnings move. And what we're seeing is the biggest volume in the big techs has really been coming from corporate buybacks. So we certainly could see this continuing to be a little bit faded once corporate buybacks end here in the market, heading into the next round of earnings reports. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here this morning. Now, our economic calendar pretty light on the day. We've got some bond settlements. We're going to get an Empire State Manufacturing number in here, and you can see they're expecting this to come in at a negative 10.5, but that's an improvement over the negative 15.6. We've been just seeing for so long manufacturing here in the United States being very, very weak. Market doesn't seem to care as long as we can continue to talk about AI and pump up tech stocks. So watch that carefully today. We've got a bill auctioned 3-month and a 6-month, and then we've got Hawker speaking later on today, and that's kind of it. As we look into Tuesday, we'll want to be paying attention. We've got retail sales, industrial production numbers. We've got business inventories, and then we're going to get a slew of Fed speakers in here, as you can see. We've got Bark and Logan. They're just going to start coming out of the woodwork with a lot of conversation here now that we're past their blackout period. On the FOMC and a Treasury International. Remember, on Wednesday, there's nothing happening in here. We're going to get a housing market index report, but the market will be closed on Wednesday. Moving into Thursday, we're going to get housing starts, jobless claims, Philly Fed. We've got current account that's going to be coming in, Atlanta's business inflation expectations, and we've got petroleum status. We got Barkin that will be speaking, some bond auctions, and a Fed balance sheet. And then on Friday, we've got PMI numbers, existing home sales, leading indicators, and a natural gas report. Remember, one of the things that we might want to be paying attention to, and we saw this last Friday, that there is a decline in consumer sentiment. And usually when consumers are not happy, the market struggles to be very happy. So watch that carefully as well. Now let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. And our earnings calendar pretty light today as well. We only have two notables to be paying attention to here today. We've got Lennar. We'll be reporting after the bell. There are no pre-market reports in here, so keep an eye on Lennar. And then we've got Lazy Boy. Will be reporting this afternoon as well. So kind of keep an eye on those two. So not much else going on there to inspire the market on the earnings side of things. So how about we take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, guys, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, and that would be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I put a lot of importance on that because that helps that algorithm show these videos to more folks. And I never would have guessed we'd be, well over 30,000 subscribers on this type of content. But thank you so much for everyone who does participate. Thank you for those who share these videos out on your social media feed. Just click that link and share that link out there. And then also, thank you so much to everyone who continues to support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link just below the title of the video. Now let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. And remember, guys, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You're going to have to be very careful here in the market with the fluctuation that we're seeing in the dollar and the bonds. Anything is possible, but make sure you're following your rules and your guidelines. You should never ever follow someone else's trade ideas without a very strong evaluation of that chart and whether or not it fits your rules and your risk tolerances. Well, first off, let's take a look once again at what we've been seeing here in the dollar. This increasing dollar, I keep thinking that there's going to be a time that this is going to shift and we're going to see that dollar start coming back down. But right now, we've tried a lot of volatility in that pre-market candle, as you can see on UUP. Watch that carefully here to see how that dollar continues to respond here today. If we continue to see the dollar strengthening, then look at those commodity prices that are likely going to continue to weaken. Take a look at GLD. Now, GLD, interestingly, popped up, had a really strong day on Friday. But you'll want to notice we pushed right into this downtrend, and there is some significant resistance, as you can see, right up in here, just above. And now we're showing that bit of bearishness here this morning on the dollar with that strength in here. So watch that pretty carefully. Right now, we have gold futures down $14.20 an ounce. So if we were to drop through this support, then we run that risk where we've got the lower high, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. in that chart. So be careful if we continue to see the dollar strengthen. We certainly could see gold, silver, things like that moving to the downside here on the day. Let's take a look at our energy sector. Energy has been extremely weak, and one of the things that's kind of interesting is we're weakening up on the energy sector because we see a lack of demand. There's a lack of demand, and that means the consumers are weak. Yet at the same time, we can't buy enough tech to push that higher. So there's a little bit of a clue that could be forming here if we are going to continue to weaken energy because we see that lack of demand from the consumers. Then maybe we should be thinking about the fact that we should be a little bit careful on the chase to the upside for that possibility of a reversal coming in those indexes, just simply because of that overbought condition. And maybe we're kind of getting carried away here in that move to the upside. So keep an eye on this, and if we continue to see the dollar strengthen, then I would expect that energy could continue to push on back. But if that dollar does start to weaken, notice we're down here on the bottom side of this channel, and we've got some support right down in here. I would be watching for that opportunity that maybe oil might rally back up a little bit if we're going to continue to stay bullish in the market. If we take a look some other places here, how about our financials? Our financials, well, struggling here just a little bit. As you can see in the XLF, a little bit of concern about the higher for longer here. Our banks are under stress at the moment. So kind of keep a close eye on this. If we were to mark that lower high that came in on that big surge up the other day, we ran right into the price resistance in here and then backed off and went away here, and we have made a lower low. Although we did rally back up at the end of the day, we officially have that lower low followed right after that lower high. So watch that closely here in those financials. Any bounce back up in the financials, watch this resistance area in the chart and that potential that we could come up into here and continue to see that selling. If they can push on through that downtrend and hold a higher low, then I'll be more interested in taking anything to the long side here on those financials. But there is some significant weakness here, and there is some concern about our banks. And if you notice closely in here, this the right tool, as you can see, there is that possibility that this is a head and shoulders, and this would be the neckline, and we have already broken that neckline, so it would suggest some lower prices may be coming here in our financials relatively soon. And then if we take a look at our regional banks, well, we know our regional banks are also under stress. Moody's has come out and downgraded and warned about the commercial real estate problem here that these regionals are facing. So don't be surprised in any time in any near future that we might start hearing about some major problems, possible failures in some of these regional banks, because we have quite a few of those that are in major distress. We also have that kind of a head and shoulders top pattern that you can see here on those regionals, and we're holding onto this support at the moment, trying to hang in there. But if we were to start drifting that lower, again, watch for those potential pressures coming in the market. Let's take a look at a few other places here in the charts that we want to be paying attention to. What I thought was quite interesting was Caterpillar had a big pop up. That cat just jumped up really high on those economic numbers in CPI, and then completely reversed and made new lows here in the market. So we continue to see Caterpillar moving to the downside here, moving in a very bearish pattern here overall. We've broken some lows here, as you can see in the chart. Any rally back, I would be watching for that next opportunity to short here in Caterpillar. However, if we take a look at Boeing, Boeing has already made that pullback here in the chart, has been in this bottoming pattern. We're trying to hold this little upside trend area here in the chart. So I'd start watching for that possibility of a little bit of a bounce here in Boeing if it can find that inspiration anyway, pushing back up. If the bears were to push us down through here, well, then we've got a different problem here. And I think if that were to occur, Boeing has to be looked at as the next lower high, and that possibility that Boeing could continue to move on down to make some new lows in the market. Let's take a look at a couple of our financial pay systems out there. Visa shot up here. Just lately, just shot up and broke that downtrend. Looked like there was a possibility that we could continue to move higher. And then this pressure that we're seeing in our banks, pushing that back down. We do have some hope in here with this very slight upside trend and holding onto that support that maybe we could move on through and push on up. But I'm going to change this trend line in here to look something like that, and even a rally back up into here I think would still be questionable for that possibility of a pullback to the downside. So a little bit of a problem there. If we look at SQ block is continuing to move lower, seeing that those payment system troubles here in the market, showing lots and lots of pressure. Now the only one that had really been holding on and looking pretty decent was AXP, but you can see even AXP now starting to push to that lower side, made a lower high, lower low. Any rally back in here, I would be looking for that opportunity to short American Express, so watch that closely. Now, a few things in retail. Been really interesting here in retail. Walmart showing lots of strength here, very bullish pattern, and I would be looking for that opportunity if you're not already in. I think there's folks in Right Way Options that jumped in on this already. Walmart continuing to look pretty good here to the upside, and if we look at Costco, Costco also showing lots and lots of bullishness here to the upside. These are some of the best looking charts in that retail sector that I've seen, holding that nice little consolidating pattern, pushing on through on Friday, looking for that stretch to the upside. So I'd keep an eye on Costco, looking very bullish here and continuing that move. And I've been mentioning Ross stores. Ross also holding into a very bullish pattern. We started to pop out of the box pattern is what I call it, and pushing on up, and then just kind of faded back here just a little bit. So I would watch this carefully. This was quite a consolidation over here that had to occur, and we're going maybe just a little bit ahead of trend here. So I would watch for that possibility for a little bit more consolidation, but as long as we can continue to hold those support levels, I'd keep an eye on Ross stores here overall. Take a look at the building sector or material sector here in the market. We're starting to see a little bit of a fade here in XLB. XLB starting to fade back, lower highs, lower lows. I'd watch that carefully. And if we look at the transportation sector, IYT, well, IYT tried to make a move to pop out of this downtrend, tried and then failed. And I would watch this carefully here. Our transports are continuing to look pretty weak. If we were to, and if you subscribe to any of the old Dow theory, it's about impossible for markets to move up without good solid transports moving to the upside. We'll see if this breaks on to a new low. That would be a concern here in those financials, in those transports. So there are a lot of signals here of that little bit of shift, that little slowing down here in the market, and that potential that this could roll to the downside. Let's take a look at AMD here really quick. AMD has been a little bit of a concern here for me that we could slip off of this support area in the chart. We've tried several times to get something going here to the upside, just can't quite get her going. but I would watch that carefully here. I think there's a possibility this could go either direction and in a big way in this tight consolidation. If the bulls were to find inspiration popping up into here, and it needs to get through that area of resistance, but there's also that extreme possibility that this falters here and we start making those new lows in the market. So keep an eye on AMD. Well, I apologize, everyone. I ran this video a little bit long. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for your kind support of the effort. I truly appreciate it. I want to wish you all the very, very best, and I will see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. Take care and have a great day.